every Houston Texans fan who is optimistic in the direction of this organization, he would like for you to know that you are too optimistic about this organization. And Mike, who you can find on Twitter at Mike Meltser, and you can respond to him as he lays this out for us at 713-780-3776. Mike, lay this out for us. Why, and I'll count myself amongst them,
Yes.
are a good portion of these Texans fans too optimistic about this organization?
So it's more that last year it's almost like you couldn't criticize this organization enough, especially at the end of 2020. Botched coaching search. Deshaun wants out. He demands a trade. Jack Easterby still not fired. And I get the sense that, this is what frustrates me sometimes, is that when it comes to fan bases, there are times when it's like the cool thing, the in thing to do to rip everybody. And then other times it's everyone's too sensitive. And then you have a horrible loss and it's like we dig in and then we bring up all these different things in the last year, whatever, that we've all been holding in during the times where you're not allowed to criticize. And I get the sense it's not so much that people are too optimistic. It's more that last year they were getting crushed, especially at the early part of 2021 for obvious reasons. And now it's kind of like everyone has turned the page and everyone wants so badly to believe that everything is normal. And I'm not saying it's horrible right now because it's obviously better than last year. I'm probably giving too many qualifiers. I'm not sold that they have found the answer. They just had a botched coaching search a couple of months ago. Now, I realize having Lovie Smith as the head coach is much more normal than having David Culley as the head coach because Lovie Smith is a real legitimate football person and professional, and he's been a head coach. He is respected. I get that. You do realize that no other team would have even thought about hiring Lovie as a coach, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes, no, I agree with that.
I mean, that's almost inarguable. There's not another one of the 31 other NFL teams who would have considered hiring Lovie as their head coach. And we're supposed to sit here and be cool with it because Lovie is much more normal than having David Culley's weirdness, thrown at us 3-4 times a week, right?
Yes. Or the other option that was likely the path they were headed down prior to hiring Lovie.
Yes. Josh McCown.
Yes.
So I'm not sold that the organization. My whole issue with the Texans since about 2013 has been that they have never fully kind of looked inwards and realized what has been fundamentally wrong with the organization. And I think things are much more normal than they were in 2021. But I'm still not sold that. It's something that this was asked of Nick Caserio after he traded Deshaun 2 months ago. How do you know that the next time they get a player like Deshaun Watson, that player is also not going to want out? Do you feel like that question has been answered to your satisfaction with what the regime is, with what's going on at NRG Stadium?
Yes.
Okay.
Because you can find clear, repetitive football logic behind the decisions for the roster and for the players, which are the things that are the most important for this organization. You can find clear, repetitive logic on how they have operated with the roster that they have right now.
Are you convinced that if the players on this team come to the organization, come to Nick or come to Lovie, and they say, hey, there are some things that are wrong, that are operating wrong, that we don't like, that need to be fixed? Are you convinced they're going to listen to those players or they're going to kick them out?
Depends who the player is. Who's
got the juice?
Who has the juice? That's one of the big things about this Houston Texans organization, because for a long time, what J.J. Watt wanted and what J.J. Watt said kind of goes.
Okay.
J.J. Watt gets in a fight with Bill O'Brien at practice, and then Bill O'Brien's fired. What J.J. Watt did,
that is true,
and what J.J. Watt wanted happened. He was the face of the franchise.
Yes.
That was supposed to be Deshaun Watson. That was the quarterback was supposed to be the face of the franchise. He was supposed to have those big decisions, big say, voice of the locker room, the liaison between players and management and assistants steering the direction of the organization. Part of the reason he wanted out is he didn't get any of that. And
yes,
you can debate on if that's a good thing or a bad thing? It's a bad thing that a franchise quarterback walked out of your organization and only played 0 snaps on a brand new contract with you. Okay? That's a bad thing. All right? But how did you get into that spot? The causes of that poison, the causes of those negative issues have either been removed
or
weakened to the point that they can't affect you.
Okay, so on that point, so obviously the elephant in the room is Jack Easterby.
Mm-hmm.
So the question I have is, so a year and a half ago, we're talking right now at the middle of May 2022. A year and a half ago, Sports Illustrated ran those 2 stories about Jack Easterby, which to me, either the stories are true or mostly true, or Sports Illustrated just randomly cares about an executive with the Houston Texans. So those stories ran a year and a half ago. What has fundamentally changed since then, other than the organization trying to tell people, I guess, on the record and off the record that, hey, essentially, Jack's in a corner, you don't need to worry about him?
The person that's in charge. Jack Easterby went from the person that's in charge to Nick Caserio.
Okay.
Nick Caserio is the person that is in charge. This happens in big business a lot of times, too, by the way. A lot of times, there's a person who sets the direction of the organization. There's a person that sets the direction of the business. It does not go well, but because they are buddy-buddy with important people in the business, they get to keep their job.
Yep.
They get to keep their big salary, and somebody else comes in and runs the business. And that person's over in another office, off by themselves, taking care of things that can't drastically change the way the business operates on a day-to-day basis. That happens in corporate America all the time.
I get that.
And that's what had happened with the Houston Texans. Jack Easterby went from a person who is in charge of the organization to a person that has no power of being in charge with the organization because that person is Nick Caserio.
I still want to see moving forward, and I'm actually probably not as...
If they put an organizational chart together, the Houston Texans, and put it on a whiteboard, like the FBI investigating a mafia family, the McNairs would be at the top. Right below them would be Nick Caserio.
Okay.
There'd be a line to Nick Caserio that would go off to the side and go down. There'd be a picture of Jack Easterby there. There'd be no lines coming off of Jack Easterby. And then there'd be a line down from Nick Caserio to all the people that are in charge of scouting, that are in charge of injuries and player rehab. And there'd be Lovie Smith there. Like, that's what it would be. That'd be the head of the family would be the McNairs. The person that's in charge of everything would be Nick Caserio.
This might mean nothing to you, but I do note that if you go to HoustonTexans.com and you look at the front office, so you got Nick listed first, then Jack, and he is the executive vice president of football operations. I will note the Texans only have a couple of people who have the executive vice president label, and in the bio for Jack, they still state as of today, as of this second, that Jack Easterby directs, and I quote, the overall culture of the organization. The overall culture.
Mike,
and I'm wondering practically, though, to put this in like real terms, I want to know what kind of free agents they sign next year, and I just want to know like who is going to come here, and I hope there are many and there are some stars. Who is willing to come here, who doesn't have to come here. Like Derek Stingley has no choice, Kenyon Green has no choice, Jalen Petrie has no choice. They select those guys, they have to sign the rookie contracts and come play.
Okay, my counter to that's going to be: do you think Justin Jackson wanted to go to the Chargers? Or do you think Justin Jackson wanted to go to the team that paid him the most money? It's the number one corner in free agency.
J.C. Jackson.
J.C. Jackson.
I was thinking of the running back, and I got confused for a second.
Yeah, J.C. Jackson. Excuse me. J.C. Jackson. Did you think he wanted to be a member of the Chargers because he thought the Chargers were awesome and he believed in Justin Herbert?
I get
and
that.
Brandon Staley's press conferences impressed him to high heaven? Or did Jackson go to the Chargers because they paid him the most money?
Listen, typically the money's going to be the number one driver, but I just wonder how much of a Texans tax is going to be. And I will say, I'm probably coming across as like super negative in this segment. It's more, listen, I'm actually looking forward to watching this team play because it should be a lot more watchable this year, and I'm intrigued by Davis Mills. All I'm saying is that in the deep recesses of my soul and my brain and my heart, like the places that people don't want to talk about, I still have some deep questions about the overall direction of this organization, which I will need answered moving forward.
Skepticism's healthy, Michael.
I'm still skeptical.
It's good that you have skepticism. People who don't have skepticism end up in cults, and that's never a good thing. That never ends well.
Good points.
Okay, skepticism is healthy. You're right to have skepticism in this organization. I have less skepticism because I believe that the person that is in charge of the entire direction of the way they're playing football is Nick Caserio. and that nobody can tell him what to do, and he's doing exactly what he wants to do. And I like a lot of the stuff that he's done so far. Now, he sat here this offseason and said they're going to be big spenders next year. So if they're not big spenders in free agency next year, this team stinks on the field every week. Okay, what's the old phrase that our buddy Terry Collins earlier this week had to deal with the umpire? Nick Caserio, ass in the jackpot. Okay?
Our ass is in the jackpot now.
All right?
Okay?
You're not a big spender next year, and the team stinks all throughout the 2022 season. It's kind of ass in jackpot time. And maybe Mike's skepticism was right. However, Chad on the text line, you can weigh in on the text line as well, 713-780-3776, said, sounds like Mike's trying to get some real estate on Bad Take Boulevard. That'd be impressive.
I actually like that.
That'd be impressive.
I like that.
Be impressive, Mike, if you added to the population of Bad Take Boulevard. Currently only has 2 members. Be impressive. Don't do that. Don't wade into that territory. You don't want to do that.
Hey, you made it to the end of the video. Thanks so much for watching. If you liked what you saw, hit the like button down below, and of course, subscribe to my channel. And if you're a Houston sports fan, listen to ESPN Houston 97.5 FM or 92.5 FM weekdays from 3 to 7 every afternoon.